Well, good morning, everybody, here live from Budapest. We are here for the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, qualifying to Group B, about to get underway this time around. And in order to prepare ourselves ready for yet another thrilling race around this Hungaroring circuit. It certainly did not fail to impress. The drama continued right through, with mixed conditions plaguing us for the entire weekend. It's gone from dry to wet, to dry again, to then wet in places. This morning, though, not so much of an issue. The clouds are still in the sky, however. We could still be in with the realms of change. And speaking of the word change, there's been lots of it lately, certainly where the stewarding decisions have come into play. I'm going to take you through them now, folks, because it was a very busy day yesterday for all those concerned. Drama at the very top of the results order from yesterday's race one. Zachary David, kicking things off, received a 5-second time penalty, post-race penalty, for breaching Article 14.1 of the FRECA sporting regulation. Brando Bador off track at turn 9. He would also receive a further 5-second time penalty for breaching Article 31.15. So that's 31.15 of the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine sporting regulations for moving forward on his grid position before the signal to start the race was given. Enzo Dellini also receiving a 5-second time penalty for breaching Article 4.1 of the FRECA sporting regulations alike, forcing Rafael Camara off wide at turn 1, and he would also receive a further 5 seconds as well for breaching 14.1 again, for forcing Alessandro Giusti off track at turn 14, which has certainly thrown somewhat of a twist in terms of the results from yesterday. Tuka Tappinen, no change to his result. He is still coming out our race winner, but obviously bear in mind, this comes down to subject of appeal, because with regards to Sansalot Racing, all three of their cars faced disqualification after breaching the technical regulations in the aftermath of yesterday's race. And after receiving that disqualification notice, Sansalot have since declared their intention to appeal the decision of Enzo Peugeot's car. So the points for the standings are subject, and also the results of yesterday's race subject to the appeal by the French team, obviously with the results coming out in the near future. But in the meantime, we can take you through as to what those results look like. Obviously subject to that appeal. Tuka Tappinen, as I so rightly said, on top, still retains the race win. Brando Bador inherits P2, with Rafael Camara laying claim to yet another podium. His perfect podium record continues. Alessandro Giusti moving up to 4th, with Evan Gilter being the highest placed rookie still, with ART now claiming a 4th and a 5th place in yesterday's race. James Wharton has also moved up to 6th. With the penalties to Zachary David, he has now moved down to 7th. If you remember, they held on to a 1-2 crossing the line yesterday, so he's been demoted from 2nd down to 7th. Further back, Enzo Dellini finished 14th after his penalties were applied, and also the trio of Sansalot drivers currently labelled disqualified post yesterday's race. But as I said prior, obviously due to the stewarding decisions, due to the appeal that has been launched by Sansalot Racing, it could all change. So bear that in mind as we make our way through the course of the season. But at this stage, we are now out and about for qualifying 2. And the times now are being listed onto the board. Tuka Tappinen, fastest in the immediate. Still a long way to go, though. 10 minutes and 20 still to go. And the Finnish driver, who, after scooping pole position in yesterday's qualifying 1, went on to bring it home in grand style, did not leave the top of the timing tower for one single moment through the course of that race. He led from start to finish. A brilliant, a gallant Hungaroring display from Tappinen, and now extends his wins record to 2 this season after reclaiming his first back at Zandvoort in race 1. But I'm sure there's going to be many chomping at the bit for improvements. Enzo Dellini, of course, I'd imagine chomping at the bits, trying to bounce back after the hardships of yesterday. He's just gone purple in the first sector. Tappinen going purple again in sector 2. But he's just had that stolen away by Brando Bador. We've alluded to his pace, Brando Bador, over the weekend, and you could argue from a certain angle that, given the fact that Bador was fastest in free practice, And the pace that has been on show from Van Amersfoort here at this circuit has took a tap and now goes faster again. 1:47.405 stretches his advantage now to just under a second as Noah Stromstead pops in a 1:48.319 for RPM. But given the pace that has been on show by the Van Amersfoort team and Brando Bador himself, they would obviously see it as a great disappointment if they can't come away from the weekend with something positive to celebrate, certainly given their prior record at this weekend. Tuka Tappanen again going fastest in the first sector. No concerns with regards to wet weather so far in this race, but the Ferrari Academy driver giving such a grand account of himself here at this point. Comes into the season the 2024 Formula Regional Middle Eastern champion, and showing us exactly why that is the case, given the fact that he's managed to manipulate this Tata chassis to do his bidding around this Hungaroring circuit, but also back at Zandvoort, where he would lay claim to his first win of the season. And it could well be the cork in the bottle that has now been broken off to allow this young man to now pursue furthermore gallant victories. And you never know, should he stick this one on top this time with Nikhil fastest, setting a purple third sector, but Tuka Tappanen looking exceptionally quick. Brando Bador, though, has just stolen the purple second sector and is going even quicker. So all eyes now on Tappanen as he crosses the line. Let's see what the third sector gives him. He does go fastest once again, though it could yet be very quickly snatched away by Van Amersfoort. And young Brando Bador, who now exits out of turn 14. 7 minutes and 20 still to go as Bador crosses the line and takes the fastest lap away. Noah Stromstead now dropped down to second after he briefly took Tappanen. Matteo De Paulo now pops into second fastest. We also have improvements further down the order for the likes of Kanato Lay and Lena Bula. Nandavad Biran-Bhakti fifth fastest. Still though, Bador out in front by nearly a whole second between he and Matteo De Paulo in second place. And Giovanni Maschio setting a sixth fastest time in this group so far. But keep your eyes peeled, because James Wharton has just registered the fastest first sector too. So another driver who is trying to levy his season a little bit more in his favour. Kanato Lay has just gone second fastest, so the time's starting to chop and change. It's getting hotter out there. And in the recent times, we've seen the track temperature rise since the very early hours this morning, from 26.2 degrees up to 28 degrees out there on track now. And James Wharton taking full advantage of it. Brando Bador finding yet further time in that first sector. Tuka Tappanen going fastest in the second sector still. This is more like it, folks at home. Nice to see the purple sectors flittering around in amongst various drivers in this Group B as Tappanen goes fastest once again. But the question is, can James Wharton topple the R-Race GP? Prema and R-Race GP at loggerheads once again as James Wharton goes into third, just behind Brando Bador. But Bador has found a little bit more time, still not enough though to clamber back against Tuka Tappanen. Only 51 thousandths between the two. And certainly just goes to show the quality at their disposal. Obviously, Brando Bador joining the successful Van Amersfoort team, the Dutch outfits, who have been, sensational in the past and have had some grand results. We alluded to Kaz Havercourt through the course of this weekend and what he did back in 2022, taking a race win at this very circuit. Very much championing this team. Michael Belov on his return, setting personal improvements in the first and second sector, a 36.691 and a 35.998 in sector 2. But 4 minutes and 50 still to go, and you'll get a brief spell now where drivers will perhaps be on a cool down run, preparing for one final chance to dance here at the tail end of this first group that are heading out. Of course, Group B went out second yesterday, and they head out first today because, hence the ruling, as part of the regulations and the rule set that is in place here at the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, gives both groups a good opportunity to set optimal laps across the weekend. which is great to see. Now we see Tucker Tappinen, top of the timing screen once again, and heading down through towards turn 1. Let's see what he can levy his way this time around. Just looking further personal improvements from Matteo De Parlo, who is now down into 12th fastest. Remember, he was briefly up in the sharp end, if only but for a moment, and looking to try and clamber his way back up to the top. 36.7 in Sector 1, and does indeed actually cross the line and improve, but not by much, only up to P9. His teammate Enzo Peugeot pops into 4th fastest, the highest of the rookies in this group. We alluded to some of his gallant displays back at Spa, and he's fastest in the speed trap here too, so showing some decent pace is the French driver. Letting fly here, James Wharton, alike 3rd fastest in this group, 36.6, which is only slightly, so I see that, about a 10th slower than Tucker Tappinen's current lap as well. Mere 10th separates them of sorts. But Tucker Tappinen finding a lot more than what James Wharton's found right now. But sit tight, Wharton has found a little bit in that 2nd sector, but hold the phone. Brando Bador ushers in a purple 1st sector with a well over a 2.5 tenth of a second improvement. Wharton finding 19 thousandths coming out of Sector 2. They've still got a very crucial Sector 3 to come. If you don't get turn 13 right, it can very well play against you, as they now circulate heading through turn 14 this time. Tappinen has crossed the line, sets a 1:40.020, the fastest lap so far, nearly 3.5 tenths quicker. Enzo Delini goes 2nd fastest and tops the rookies. James Wharton, 3rd fastest, can't topple Delini here on this lap. But what about Brando Bador with 2 purple sectors under his belt? What can Sector 3 provide as Van Amersfoort and RHGP come to loggerheads again here in Group B this time, coming across the line? Will Bador sink him? I don't think so. Looking on my screen, it was only enough for 6th fastest, and by the looks of it, made an error coming out of Sector 3. And speaking of errors, Giovanni Maschio heading out of the chicane at turn 6 and 7, also taking a vicious amount of grass before then coming back out onto the circuit. But it looks like, despite Brando Bador's brilliance in the 1st and 2nd sector on that last lap, losing approximately 2 seconds in Sector 3 alone, which brought an end to that flying lap that would have almost certainly placed him higher than Tucker Tappinen. Michael Belov went briefly fastest in the 1st sector. Hasn't managed to replicate it in Sector 2, but you never know, could find something in Sector 3. There he is now in the Trident car, in place of Roman Belinsky this weekend, who's recovering after breaking 2 vertebrae in his back. Here comes Belov, 4th fastest for the Trident. Of course, Trident was celebrating Roman Belinsky taking pole back at Spa-Francorchamps just 2 rounds ago. It was his first pole position back at Spa in the entirety of the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, and the entirety of his career in this championship. But unfortunately, after a road accident prior to the Zandvoort weekend, he was ruled out. But we do wish him well. Michael Belov coming in his stead, who has had so much experience in this championship in the past. Approximately 3 years he has spent here, but has also competed at various different levels in single-seater, also on the road to Formula 1 as well. And he's just ushered in another purple 1st sector, so Michael Belov turning the screw here in qualifying 2. Looking to try and chase down a big result here. Competed in Formula 3 back in 2020. And that's not all. He's also competed in Formula Renault Euro Cup. Checkered flag comes down, and Michael Belov is showing brilliant signs of improvement. That is a sensational 1st sector so far. Purple doesn't quite replicate it again in Sector 2, but it's all about Sector 3. It brought him to 4th fastest on that previous lap. Could there be something else? Matteo De Parlo, 2nd fastest, with Enzo Delini just behind. Noah Stromstead only enough for 6th so far. Kanato Lay has crossed the line to finish 9th. Andriolo 12th. Maschio 14th. Lina Bula 15th. and Yuzhagao in 16th place, but all eyes on Michael Belov. What can he bring to the dance out of Sector 3? Is it enough for another improvement as he heads up towards the line? No, not quite. Fourth is where he'll stay. Tucker Tappinen still to come through the final sector. He's improved again in Sector 2. He's purple on our timing screen here, and now coming through turn 14 now. Could it be a double tap for Tucker Tappinen as he now makes his way up towards the line? Surely he'll improve. He certainly does. A 1:39.620. And that places him nearly 0.6 of a second clear of DeParlo. Enzo Dellini topples DeParlo for second with a decent lap that places him just over 3.5 tenths in behind. James Wharton crosses the line third fastest. Now across the line comes the Van Amersfoort to Brando Bador. He goes second, just in behind Tucker Tappinen. Brings the gap down to just under 2.5 tenths. But it's Tappinen on top again here at Hungaroring in Group B. Obviously still yet to find out as to who is going to be on pole. Remember, of course, it's the fastest time across both groups that will decide pole position, with that driver's group forming up in behind them on the same column of the grid. But Tucker Tappinen with another phenomenal display places him first fastest here at Hungaroring, and with a 1:39.620. Brando Bador in second, Enzo Dellini third, James Wharton at fourth, Matthew DeParlo fifth, Michael Belov in sixth, Enzo Peugeot seventh, it's Noah Stromstead in eighth, Kanato Lay in ninth, Nikhil Bora 10th, Nandavid Biran Bhakti in 11th, Ruiki Liu in 12th, Roman Andriolo in 13th, Giovanni Maschio 14th, Lena Bula in 15th, and Yuzhagao will be starting from that row on 16th position here in this group. But obviously we have to wait to find out where he is going to be placed towards the rear of the grid. Group A will be coming up next, and we will see our championship leader, Rafael Kamara, venture his way out onto the track, laying claim after the race yesterday, and the stewards' decisions were given. Obviously the results and the championship standings under subject to the appeal of Santalok Racing. But off the back of yesterday, at least for now, we can say that he has a perfect podium record. And it was an exquisite drive from Rafael Kamara, who really aimed to give his very best. It wasn't an easy qualifying session for him. One of his, should we say, worst qualifying sessions yesterday throughout the entirety of this season. But he has an opportunity now to right the wrong. A potential redemption arc here as we now get qualifying 2 underway here at Hungaroring, with Group A now about to take to the track. A 1:39.620 set by Tucker Tappinen. That is the line in the sand to beat. The big question is, who can beat it? Will it be Kamara? Can he come back and strike again? I'm looking at other names though. Zachary David, who was impressive despite losing his places on the final results. Evan Giltaire, who'll be looking to come back, who has been strong in the past. There's a slow-mo of James Wharton coming through turns 6 and 7, who put in a good display in his own right. But there was the man they could not stop, Tucker Tappinen, unleashing the same pace that took him to the Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship this year, taking the crown, and the momentum clearly in his favour. But you can bet your bottom dollar Prema will be back to hunt them down. And could be yet be Van Amersfoort that could be the thorn in the side of the pair of those teams, given their former success here at this track. But obviously, as far as the championship's concerned, all eyes will be on Rafael Kamara. Before coming into yesterday's race, Kamara had not finished once outside the top 2. But I'm sure he'll revel in the fact that he managed to obtain a podium yesterday regardless. I mean, just getting to P4 was a huge, almighty charge on his part. As now the cars make their way down the pit lane and into the pit escape, heading down towards turn 1. And it's Ugo Gachukwu who's going to lead them out for Prema, the McLaren Academy driver. And there's Marta Garcia representing Iron Dames. Always wonderful to see them out and about. Recipient for the Resilience Award after Zandvoort. Tremendous effort on Marta's part to achieve that. Remember, the Resilience Award, a new initiative for this season. It all started back at Hungaroring with Roman Andriolo accepting the very first prize of the Resilience Award, and now Marta Garcia is the recipient from Zandvoort after a gallant display in her own right to move her way past several drivers through the course of that race. Flying solo this weekend at Iron Dames with Dorian Pin taking part in the F1 Academy Championship. But in her own right, Marta Garcia, the reigning F1 Academy champion from last season, also competing in W Series since 2019. And even prior to that, competing in various different championships, including SMP F4 back in 2017 and Spanish F4 alike. The W Series career spanned across 3 seasons with 2019 through to 2022. And let's see how she gets on this time around at Hungaroring in qualifying 2. All the drivers just making sure they get the necessary heat into the tyres, maximise the grip, the performance around the very technical Hungaroring circuit. Not quite Hockenheimring, George. We are in Hungary after all, as we now watch Ivan Dominguez coming around turn 13. You will get the sense of, talk about redemption for some of these drivers. There is going to be redemption in the mind of Zachary David after losing out on that second place, and also for RSGP, who would have loved to have brought back a 1-2 for the team. And it could have been massive for them. Of course, it doesn't change the fact that they are still race winners here in race 1. And could yet follow suit to what Martinius Stenshawn did last season, who went back-to-back in both race 1 and race 2 with race victories in both of them. And of course, Stenshawn now reaping the rewards after his fabulous season last year, now competing in Formula 3. And to great effect, once again, rising up through the Formula 1 feeder series. And all these drivers have their eyes set on moving through the Formula 1 tier system as Marta Garcia heads through turn 4. Closely followed as well by the 89 of Ivan Dominguez. The Portuguese, though, sprints through turn 5 and now will rush through towards turn 6 and 7. In terms of the first sector right now, Edgar Pierre is the fastest driver. He's representing the RPM team. Competed in French F4 back in 2022 and 2023, and was also up against Tuka Tappinen in this season's Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship. And no doubt looking to find his necessary improvements alike. There's quite a few drivers battling for the Rookie Championship this season too. We saw Ivan Dominguez earlier on screen coming into this weekend. He was placed 3rd in the championship for the rookies. Just in behind Noah Stromstead and Evan Gilter, who leads the championship fight. There's Alessandro Giosti, the Williams Academy driver. Pierre still registered as fastest with the first laps that are now coming through. Ugo Gachukwu now 2nd fastest. Actually going purple in the latter 2 sectors. The first sector was not very inspiring. In fact, it's 2nd slower than Pierre in that first sector on that last lap. But Ugo Gachukwu managing to nail a brilliant sector 2 and sector 3 to start. Obviously, it's all about setting that bar, setting the delta in place so you've got something to measure against. Alessandro Giosti will be looking to go steps higher this time around as well. Was right in amongst that podium fight yesterday. And is also another driver that has tasted championship glory in the past. French F4 champion back in 2022. Ugo Gachukwu now going purple in the first sector. Nico Lecorte now goes to 2nd fastest after setting a purple sector 2. Still not enough to topple Edgar Pierre just yet, but that was the first flying lap set by Lecorte. 2nd purple sector now for Ugo Gachukwu as well, following suit from the first sector, finding 1.5 seconds near enough of the realm. There he is right now in the familiar colours that are donned by the McLaren team that are celebrating so far this weekend after Lando Norris's great efforts in Spain. No doubt Ugo Gachukwu is going to look to try and emulate that here at Hungaroring this time around. as he now bursts down the straight, the man from the United States, and he's going to state his claim at the top of the tree in the early stages of Group A qualifying. Remember, the time to beat, 1:39.620. So we're expecting these times to come crashing down eventually. Of course, a 1:46.266, uncomparable to the time that Tuukka Tappinen set earlier on. But the track is still continuing to heat up. It was 28 at the start of qualifying for Group B. It's now 30, just gone over 30 degrees right now, 30.3 to be precise. So these drivers are going to reap the benefits, and already you can tell because it's 2.5 seconds near enough. Ugo Ugochukwu's found in Sector 1 alone. The tyres now getting into the right window, and Ugochukwu is now showing that right now, coming through turns 6 and 7, runs a little wide on the escape coming out of turn 7, but I think he might have done enough to rescue it. We'll have to wait and see. Just keep your eyes peeled to see if there are any deletions. Of course, there's quite a sensitive point on the circuit heading through out of turn 7. We've seen a few cars get it wrong across the weekend as he hurtles through turn 11 towards turn 12. Nearly 5 seconds found by Ugochukwu. Marta Garcia finding 2.2 seconds in Sector 1 alike as well, so on a big improvement in her own right. She's third fastest right now. It's the Prema driver, Ugo Ugochukwu, who's come up against stiff competition in the past, including the likes of Tuukka Tappinen and Andrea Kimi Antonelli. They're at loggerheads in Italian F4. Now Ugochukwu comes up towards the line, goes fastest. More so fastest again, 6.8 seconds he's put between himself and Evan Gilter, who's in second. Kamara now goes up to second fastest, but still a little ways off. Zachary David now pops into third as Edgar Pierre goes back into second this time. So they're now all starting to come down at this point in time. It's Ugochukwu on top. There's red 5 belonging to the talented Brazilian Rafael Kamara. Not once out of the podium so far this season. And whilst obviously yesterday wasn't his best result to date, you can label it as one of his grandest race performances to date. He has been sensational this season. He was teammates alongside Antonelli and Lorenzo Flusha last season, and got a chance to speak to him on a few occasions in last season's campaign, just see how physical he was behind the wheel. Full commitment coming through the chicane in the middle sector. Valerio Rinicella now going purple in the second 2 sectors, goes first fastest as the Italian. A great display. Ugo Ugochukwu, though, has stolen that purple second sector again, so yet more pace on offer. We're in the 1:40.9s at this stage. Still the time yet to be beaten, set in place by Tuukka Tappinen. But there's still a long way to go. Alessandro Giusti goes fastest with a 40.7. Teofil Nile in the Santalot goes first fastest this time. But Ugochukwu, looking to levy it in his favour, goes fastest once more. But he's not alone because he's got his teammate coming up in behind. Rafael Kamara goes to the top and rips it away from Ugo Ugochukwu. Zachary David now up to second fastest for Ares GP. But red 5 on top, as we now take a look at Nico Lacorte coming through turn 7. Just see how they make it look so simple when it's in slow-mo, but I can tell you this, folks, if you're fully committed to that chicane at turn 6 and 7, it can gain you a lot of time, but at the same time, it takes a quality driver to maintain control. And speaking of which, just take a look at Rafael Kamara, fully sideways, coming through out of turn 7 and keeping the car in the lines as well by the looks of it. You can just see the tyres on the right-hand side. Tremendous job on his part. Fastest at this stage, 1:40.046 on the last lap, granting him top step here in Group A, but it's still not enough to take down Tuukka Tappinen. And requisite from what we saw in our previous group. The drivers now on cool runs, just to make sure the tyres are in the right window to challenge in the last gasp moments of qualifying. Track temperature rising now up to 31 degrees. We have a north to south breeze heading through the track too, so Not that it's necessarily a strong one, but the only consistently rising factor is the temperature. The air temperature also increasing over the last few hours. It's now 22.3 here in the air, so couple that with the track temperature that's still continuing to rise. 31.3 at this point in time, as now we watch on as Zachary David makes his way around turn 14. And then he'll send it down the straight towards turn 1. He's got Kamara fully in his sights. There's Kamara in the window, Zachary David pursuing him. His eyes primed, no doubt, on the back of that Prema. You can't miss it in its usual gallant red colours. The striking scarlet red, requisite of the Ferrari team that have been at the top of Formula One for a long, long time. Rafael Kamara, a Ferrari Academy driver, who is exceptionally proud to be part of it, much like Tuka Tappinen himself, who we spoke to in Paddock Live yesterday. And he went into great detail about how proud he was to represent the Ferrari brand. No doubt the same can be said for Rafael Kamara, who I'm sure has it fully embedded into his mind that he wants to bring home a decent result and also a championship to the prancing horses. Purple in the second sector for Pedro Clero. So once again, not over for Van Amersfoort, who are still working hard to try and bring the positive results their way. So from one Brazilian to another, with Rafael Kamara leading the way, we could yet see Pedro Clero add his own Brazilian flag to the top of Group A's timing. He goes third fastest, does Clero. Just pops himself in behind Zachary David, who finds further improvements in the second sector and enough to go purple, in fact, and still has the final sector to go. Ugo Gachukwu, though, goes fastest immediately, goes purple in the third sector alike. Here comes Zachary David up towards the line. Can he find a little bit more to pop ahead of Ugo Gachukwu? Not quite, but Kamara has. And Kamara goes to the top with a 1:39.939. We're on the cusp of breaking that 1:39.6 set by Tuka Tappinen. But can Kamara do it? Can Ugo Gachukwu do it? Can David do it? Can Clero do it? Who knows? We've got to factor in Alessandro Giusti as well, who is fastest in the speed trap. Anything is possible at this very late stage. A sensitive portion, or a sensitive point in qualifying right now. As we come down to the final moments, there's Kamara on a slow lap this time. No doubt getting set for one last run. And that's all he'll have left. Still needs to find 0.3 of a second to take pole position away from Tuka Tappinen. Does have the fastest lap so far in Group A. And whilst that will place him on the front row of the grid, should it stay like this, every driver's ambition is to be on top and to take pole position. And number one is something that Rafael Kamara has become quite adept to honing so far this season, with quite a successive number of victories under his belt. And he certainly would never doubt him. Through the course of this campaign, he's managed to pull together 4 wins in the last 7 races, with podiums achieved throughout. And prior to this Hungaroring weekend, not appearing outside the top 2. There is Ugo Gachukwu, already second in the timing screen. Prema looking oh so strong right now. The young man from the United States will now look to set the pace here in what will be this being the final run in this qualifying session. The timer ticking with 5 seconds to go. 3, 2, 1, and that is the checkered flag. This is the final qualifying lap that these drivers can put into place. It all comes down to this for Ugo Gachukwu, looking to try and hook up turn 5. Purple in the first sector for Rafael Kamara. The tyres well within the window here this time. The track temperature scooting up yet another 0.4 degrees on our screen, so it started to heat up once more. Kamara making the most of it as he hustles through turn 6 and 7. the Brazilian that struck gold back at Hockenheimring and Spa-Francorchamps twice over in both races 1 and races 2, with Zandvoort providing him with a brilliant result in the second race. He may have hurt from yesterday, but he's looking to bounce back today. Alike, so is Alessandro Giusti, who takes first place in the immediate. But all eyes on Rafael Camara, who's purple on the outset of Sectors 1 and Sectors 2. He needs a dynamite final 2 corners in order to elevate himself to the front to break ahead of the Williams Academy driver. Clero goes third fastest. Ugo Chukwu, though, is going to be setting his lap down on this timing screen. Can he make his way up towards the top end? Can he break past? He certainly can. Ugo Chukwu goes fastest. Here comes Camara. He takes it away. Rafael Camara goes purple in the last lap with a 1:39.676, but it's still not enough to beat Tuka Tappanen's time in Group B. Giusti third fastest. Pedro Clero in fourth. We then have Evan Gilter further back in fifth fastest. Zachary David, not an ideal day at the office at all for him. Only enough for sixth fastest here in this group. But Rafael Camara setting a 1:39.676. And against Tuka Tappanen, it was not quite enough for pole position in accordance to what I've got here. A 1:39.620. Enough for Tuka Tappanen to take pole position. What a thrilling end to qualifying. It may have been fastest in the Group A for Rafael Camara, but he would have wanted just a little bit more. The Brazilian is on top here in Group A. He will start in the front row for Prema Racing. His teammate Ugo Chukwu in second, Alessandro Giusti in third, Pedro Clero, another brilliant Van Amersfoort performance, down in fourth place, Evan Gilter fifth, Zachary David in sixth, Teofil Nile in seventh, Ivan Dominguez in eighth, Valerio Ridicella in ninth, Jesse Carrasquedo in 10th, we then have Marta Garcia in 11th, Nico Lacorte in 12th, Alex Sauer in 13th, and Edgar Pierre 14th, Isaac Barashi in 15th place, with Yaroslav Vesalaho in 16th spot. So, folks, that brings an end to qualifying. Join us for the race this afternoon. We'll see you then. Goodbye.